Hello and welcome to my Goat Shed Life, where it is another Manic Monday and I'm going to talk a little bit more on aging. This is the third video that I've made about aging and care for the elderly and those kinds of things. And they took my mom to the hospital on Saturday, but they went ahead and took her back to the nursing home later on Saturday. And apparently everything that she had that was bothering her, they kind of took care of the symptoms and ran some tests and made sure everything was okay. At any rate, yesterday being Sunday, I went to the nursing home to visit her, as I want to do just about every Sunday, to go by there and check on her. And when I got there, she was kind of headed out the door, and I could tell by looking at her that maybe she'd been asleep. She'd just woken up. And the nurse with the med cart was standing there, and I asked if the hospital had changed any of her medications, and they said that they had taken her off of an Exelon patch, which they had been sticking on her back, and put her on a pill form of medication that's, I guess, supposed to work better for dementia and forgetfulness and those types of things. She's never been diagnosed with Alzheimer's per se, but definitely there's some dementia there. As we were visiting her in the hospital, my friend was with me, and she asked her at least 15 times. Now, when's the last time I saw you? Now, it's been a long time. When's the last time I saw you? And this is something that when you deal with someone who is older, and that after a while, having the same question asked of you over and over again, or having the same story told to you over and over again within the course of just an hour, can really kind of put you in a position of losing patience with a person, and you just have to be able to hold it together. At any rate, she was coming out the door, and I said, "Hey, where are you going?" She said, "Well, I have to go to the restroom. I'm going to my room." And I said, "Well, sweetie, you're in your room." And she said, "Oh, okay." I said, "The restroom's behind you." And she turned around, walked past the restroom door, and went over to what would be the closet of her roommate, if she had a roommate. So it's an empty closet door. And I was talking to the nurse, and when I turned around, she was shutting that door. And I walked over and opened the bathroom door for her and said, "This is where you need to be." Anyway, you just see that confusion more and more. And again, she had just woken up. When she was in the hospital, my friend also asked her some other questions, like what town she was born in. She knew she was born in Texas, but she couldn't remember the town. All of these things are a little scary. At any rate, so what I wanted to talk about today is basically two things. First of all, when you're caring for an old person, like I said, and that person starts to ask you the same questions over and over, tell you the same stories over and over, it's a day in and day out. When you have that, it's really hard to keep your cool and not lose it with that person. And also, when I was taking care of my mom, and she wasn't that bad about that then. My grandmother had gotten pretty bad about it, but my mom, when she was staying with me, she hadn't quite gotten that bad yet, that she was, repeating herself over and over again. However, there were times when, she needed help getting dressed, or help bathing, which is just, of all the things in the world, I think the only thing worse than that would be to have to change your parent's diaper, is to help your parent get a bath and help wash them, and nobody wants to do all that. And then you end up, you make food for them and you serve them food, and this person becomes like a grown-up child that you're taking care of, that still in their mind feels like a grown-up person, and that you shouldn't be the boss of them because they are supposed to be the boss of you. And it really creates a stressful relationship that you have to really work on, because it becomes a relationship that is built on need, in the same way that your children would need you, is that now you have this parent that needs you, and you become the provider of all of that person's needs, and all of the decisions that have to be made in their life becomes your responsibility. You can avoid some of that with advanced directives and what you want to have happen when you get old, which is something that aging is, getting old is not for sissies. It's something that maybe people in their 50s or before need to start to think about. Again, high school class. You know, if you're lucky, you're going to get old because the alternative is to die young. And none of us want that. So, anyway, it's just something to think about. 20-year-old is probably not going to get a long-term care insurance policy, but they'd be awfully cheap at that point, and if you paid into it until such time as you might need it, because long-term care is expensive. And that's the other thing that I wanted to talk about, is that if you have assets and maybe you don't have a lot, you just have maybe one house, or maybe you own a couple of homes, and a house in a rental house, or something like that, and you don't have a bunch of money. Maybe you've got $70,000 or $80,000 in the bank. That $70,000 or $80,000 could be eaten up really quickly through long-term care, when you're looking at 4,000 to 6,000 and up per month to take care of yourself. And if you to take care of you through a long-term care facility like a nursing home, and and all of that can be just wiped out in the course of just a very few years. And these are things that we need to look at and we need to think about. They have these wonderful people out there, yes, they will charge you, that are known as estate planners. They and real estate planners and attorneys who know the ins and outs of estate planning and how to hold on to your assets so that they can be passed down to your children, rather than them just all be eaten up at the end of your life. In the state of Texas, we have a little thing called the Ladybird deed, and that what that does is it issues a life estate. It deeds a life estate to one individual or a group of individuals, and on the day that you died, that property, basically, via that deed that was filed, the Ladybird deed, that property, there's no will, or will probate to go through or anything like that. It automatically becomes that the people that you've given that Ladybird deed to, and then they can go down and file it to where their name is primary on there. And just some things, I don't know how their states deal with it, but these are just some things that we should think about. Especially if you come into your 50s and you start looking around and you've had the experience of having to care for an older person, or more than one older person in your life, and you see how that the path that and progression that takes, and the decisions that will have to be made, like advanced directives and do not resuscitate, and how do we want to handle this and how do we want to handle that. And certainly we would all rather pass down whatever, I would think, whatever assets that we have to our children, instead of them ending up just being paid out. And so I really would advise you, if you're in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, and especially if you're in your 50s and approaching that retirement age where you may actually have some money saved, and look into a long-term care insurance policy. I'm not trying to sell insurance. I don't like it. But just maybe visit with someone and find out what your options are to make things as easy as possible on your family when the time comes that you can't really think for yourself anymore. Who are you going to want to have power of attorney to be able to think for you and trust them enough to know that they're going to advocate for what it is you want, not what's in their best interest, but whether what's in yours. And so these are all just things to think about. Thanks for listening to my video. I hope this is helpful to someone in some way, and I'm going to get back to some happier stuff a little bit later. But anyway, happy Monday, and please subscribe to my channel, hit the like button, and love y'all, and hope you have a great day and a wonderful week. Bye now.